So welcome to the channel. My name's Claire. So this is the first video in a new series called Thanks I Made It, where we talk about beginner and plus size sewing. So no matter what size you are or what your sewing level is, this series is going to help you. So do hit that subscribe button down below. So the first thing to ask yourself is, what is your end goal in deciding to buy a sewing machine? It might be that you've never tried sewing and you want to see if you like it. You might have tried it a little bit on someone else's machine and want to buy your own. You might have had a basic machine and it's time to upgrade. Also, what are you going to sew on the machine? Because that will impact the type of machine that you buy. If you are sewing home stuff, which I don't know why you'd be watching this video if that was the case, because this is a series for garment sewing. But if you did want to do other things as well as garment sewing, then you need to take that into account, because not all machines would be able to do more heavyweight fabrics. If you were looking to do quilting as well as garment sewing, you might want something with more stitches, for example. So this stuff is really important. I really recommend actually that you write my questions down and put your own answers with them, because by the end that will really help you decide on what machine or where you're going to buy your machine, or give you an idea of what you want. So the next question to ask yourself, and I'm trying to put these in order of importance, so bear that in mind, but the next question to ask yourself is, what is your budget? And that's really, really important, because that is going to dictate the type of machine that you buy. So do you have a budget? And if so, how much is it? And if you don't necessarily have a budget, how much are you willing to spend on a sewing machine? Think about how much use you're going to get out of it. Is it going to bring you the return that you are looking for? Once you have your budget in mind, you can then look for machines within that budget, and that is going to really bring down the amount of machines that you are looking at. So if you are a complete novice to sewing, then the next question to ask yourself is there anyone I could borrow a machine from? Because this is going to save you lots of money and really give you a better insight into whether sewing is for you. Think about family or friends. Would they potentially have one in their attic or in a bedroom somewhere that they do not use anymore? Many people sew for quite a while and then they give up or have a long break from it. So there may be someone that has a sewing machine that they're not using that you could just borrow for a couple of weeks. If not, look to your workplace, your school, university, or any clubs that you're affiliated with. They might have one sat in a cupboard somewhere that you could potentially use. Also, another great option, which many people don't think about, is to look on Facebook. On Facebook, there's lots of groups where people are giving stuff away for free, usually like household stuff, but sometimes sewing machines come up. So it's a good idea to be connected to those groups within your local area. And another way that you could use a sewing machine without paying for one is to join a sewing club. Obviously, that might be an issue depending on your area because of COVID restrictions. However, once that is done and dusted and we have all our freedoms back, then potentially a sewing machine club might be a way to go. So you finally decided you're definitely going to buy a sewing machine. Congratulations, that's a big decision to make. What you need to ask yourself now is, do I want to have an old refurbished machine or do I want to go new? Now, to be honest, this is personal choice. I've always gone with new machines. I've bought the odd old machine and haven't got on with it, but that is just me. You may well be different, and it really is personal choice. The thing is, the older machines can often be more reliable and easier to fix, so that's going to keep costs down if it needs to go in for repairs. But a new machine, you get that instant gratification. I am the queen of instant gratification. So I know what I'm talking about here. You do get that surge of dopamine when you do purchase a brand new sewing machine. And with a new sewing machine, you'll get a brand new warranty, so you can take it back if you don't like it or something wrong with it. and you get free service within that warranty for a couple of years, and you know for certain there's going to be parts available. Sometimes with the old machine, the parts are not available anymore. So once you've decided that, do you want a manual or do you want electronic? If you're choosing an older machine, you're more than likely going to be choosing a manual one. There are some machines, I was going to say born in the 70s, but created in the 70s that are electric. So you do need to decide what you want, and this is personal choice as well. But with the electronic ones, you get a lot more bells and whistles if that is what you're looking for. But you do have to bear in mind, with the electronic ones, a lot more can go wrong with them. So the next question to ask yourself is, which brand do I choose? So there's lots and lots of sewing brands out there, but there are three main ones. So there's Brother, Singer and Janome are the three main ones that most people tend to go towards. So that's worth bearing in mind. If you do choose a more obscure brand, you need to look into whether the parts are going to be available and whether there are people that are experienced enough to fix your machine if it goes wrong. So that's why I've always tended to stick to the three main brands. But there are other brands that are not quite so prominent, but they are pretty, well used. The best thing to do if you're unsure about which brand to go with is to ask for personal recommendations or look at reviews online. Ask in groups on Facebook and see what people's favourites are, because you will see recurring themes in their responses. For me, I've had the three main ones, so I've had a Janome, a Singer and a Brother. I would never buy a Singer again. Many people have had Singers and have great experiences with them, but that just wasn't my experience. I'd bought a Singer from Lidl and it lasted a couple of weeks. I've had Janome. Janome and Brother are almost identical from my personal experience, I would say, but Brother has the edge for me. I had, and I still have, the Janome DKS 100. So this was the machine that Tilly and the Buttons used, and I was learning with how pretty it looked. I loved the blue front on it and I liked it. It was a good machine, but the throat space was too small for my big hands. So I ended up upgrading to this beauty here, which is the Brother Innovus MV 1800Q, and this was a fantastic investment. This wasn't cheap, so this probably isn't a beginner machine, but the Brother Innovus range is a really good range and is the range that I recommend. I've used quite a few machines at this point, and the Brother Innovus range, fantastic. I cannot fault it. So now we get on to the good stuff. You want to know which features do I need versus which features are quite nice to have and which are just completely unnecessary. Let's talk about your essential features. So we're going to assume that you want to sew garments. So you're going to want a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch. They are essential. You cannot negotiate on that. You must have those if you want to sew. If you only wanted to sew wovens, then you could just have a straight stitch. You are going to probably sew some knits as well, so you will need that zigzag. You're also going to want a reverse stitch. A back stitch is going to really help you. You're going to want a machine that has a metal frame within it. Many machines, especially the new machines, the new electronic machines, are made of plastic and they're really lightweight, and that just means that when you're sewing, your machine is going to go for a walk. It's going to go do 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 do. I've sewn on plastic machines and ones with a metal interior. This has a metal interior, it's very heavy. Believe me, you really want a metal interior. So you are also going to want a free arm. Let me show you what a free arm is. This part of the machine comes off. You can then wrap your sleeve heads around the machine. You're also going to want speed control, so you can go really slowly or a little bit faster if you want. And even if you are a fast sewer, you're going to want to be able to slow down at certain points. and you're going to want a buttonhole. My voice is going croaky. So if you feel differently and you think I've got too many essentials or I've got the wrong essentials, do leave a comment down below, because that's going to help other people who will look through the comments to get information on how to buy. So in addition to those essentials, which you cannot live without really, you really want to look for those within a sewing machine, no matter what budget you're at. But perhaps you've got a bigger budget, or you want to try some other things such as quilting, etc. There are some other things that are going to be helpful and just make your life a bit easier, even if you are just sewing garment. So the first additional one that isn't essential, but it is quite nice to have, is a top loading bobbin. So a top loading bobbin just means that you're going to be able to see when your thread is running low, because most machines, unless they're really high end, do not warn you when your bobbin is going to run out. So it is really good to have, and also a top loading bobbin is easier to load than a side bobbin in my personal experience. Now the next one is a little bit controversial as to whether you need it at all, but for me, because I have hand tremors, it is very essential, and that is an auto threader. So on the machine there's a little handle there, and that auto threads, and that just stops you needing to thread the needle. So I did mention a buttonhole as something that is essential, but that could be a 4-step buttonhole. I would say something that is extra, it's going to make your life easier, is a 1-step buttonhole. You just press the button and it does the whole buttonhole itself. A larger throat space, especially if you've got big hands like I have, is going to be so helpful. Here I've got a really big throat space. A lightning stitch is helpful, not essential, but it is helpful. If you've got, long as you've got a zigzag stitch, you're good to go. But a lightning stitch is a stitch that is actually aimed for sewing knits, and it does it almost in a way that is like a straight stitch, but it's stretchy. So the start and stop button is going to be really helpful, if not only for emergencies. Full disclosure, sometimes I can't find my sewing machine foot because, you know, I'm chaotic. And so at a push, literally at a push, I will use my start and stop button instead. An extendable table is something that is also really helpful to give you more space for your fabric, especially if you're sewing on a really small table, then your fabric might hang off and that's going to distort your fabric. But if you've got an extendable table, it's going to keep it level and in the best condition possible. So the next question to ask ourselves is, should we buy online or in person in a shop? This answer can be quite controversial depending on your stance. A lot of people think you should buy in person, and there is a lot of benefit to doing that. So firstly is that you can try the machine out in the shop if you go to the shop and they've got a model you want. Bad side, they might not have the model. There's a lot more choice online. They can usually order it in, but that's going to take time. So buying online is a lot more convenient and you can often get better deals. Some shops will price match for you. So if I decide to buy in store, what should I be looking for, or what should I ask the vendor? A really good question to ask them is, what machine do you recommend for my needs and my budget? Because often they've got a lot of experience and their insight can be really helpful. As mentioned before, you want to ask, can you try the machines out? So something to ask is, does the machine I like have a good track record? Are people bringing the machine back in again and again to be fixed? Because if they are, that's going to potentially increase how much you're going to pay for the machine over time. This little man's being a beast. So you also want to find out whether the machine is going to need lots of repairs. You'll need to ask how often it needs servicing and how much that is going to cost. Are parts readily available for this machine? How long is the guarantee? Does it come with an extended warranty? Can I return it if I'm not happy with it? Do you offer classes to help me get to grips with the machine? And do you price match the internet? Those questions are really going to help you to decide whether the sewing machine is for you. So if you want to buy it online instead, you may want to consider those things that I mentioned for buying in the shop, but there are some other things to consider when buying online. Is the machine that you found the best price on the internet? How much is delivery and how long is it going to take to be delivered? Be sure to look up reviews of the seller and the machine as well. Watch some YouTube videos about the machine, which you can do if you're buying online or not. Check to see, as with buying in the shop, that you can return it if you need to, and that it does have an extended warranty. So I hope this video is giving you food for thought and giving you a bit more direction about what it takes to buy a sewing machine. So if you have enjoyed this video, you are going to love this video here where I reviewed a $30 mini sewing machine that looks like a toy. Until next time, happy sewing. Bye for now.